The first blank game week of the season is upon us, and I'm sure all of us need to be making some transfers because right now we cannot be fielding a full 11. Well, I say we. I'm going to be able to without taking a hit. I don't know about you guys, but anyway, make sure you like and subscribe, and let's get right into the video. Ladies and gents, you probably know how it goes by now. We are starting with the fixtures, and obviously the bottom 4 teams all have a blank game week. If I see any of you transfer in a player who is playing against blank in game week 31, I will block you. Even though you can't do that on YouTube, I will somehow find a way because I do not need your brain wavelengths near mine. You're just going to bring me down in life in general. Also, you will see some blue fixtures on here. Let me explain if you didn't see the last video. Some teams are going to have a double game week 33. Some are going to have a blank game week 34. These percentages don't mean double game week 33 and blank game week 34. It means blank game week 34 and blank game week 34 postponed. Postponed blank game week 34 fixtures could move to double game week 33, or they could move to the midweek of game week 34, meaning there won't actually be a blank. Prime example of this is West Ham versus Everton. Even if West Ham get to the FA Cup semi-finals, they will almost definitely still have a fixture in blank game week 34 because the schedule allows for it. It's not definite, but it probably will happen. Whereas Liverpool, they only have a 40% chance of having their fixture postponed because they're unlikely to get to the FA Cup semi-finals. But if they do get there, they're probably going to have a blank game week in 34 and double in game week 33. As for the fixture difficulty rating here, there's some big swings. We saw teams like Brentford, Liverpool and Fulham at the top for a while. Now we're looking at Villa, Brighton and Spurs. And I gotta say, it's kind of annoying. You know, transfers aren't worth using when the teams with the best fixtures are Villa, Brighton and Spurs. Who are you going to transfer in? Xavi Simons, Jorginho Rutter, Morgan Rogers, Tammy Abraham. It's just difficult, you know. The teams that actually have good assets, you could even argue Sunderland and Newcastle, maybe even Leeds. But as you get lower down, that's where the good FPL assets are. So you're going to have to bring average players who could do well on a fixture run, which is kind of what I prefer to do, or good players with good underlying data who don't have the easiest fixtures. It's tough, and there are going to be some big swings coming forward because who do you bring in? Well, then again, it mostly depends on your chip strategy, right? Some of you are on wildcard 32, some of you aren't. Me personally, I'm going to use it in game week 35 while saving my free hit for game week 33, meaning game week 33 on here means nothing to me. I can just ignore it. For example, Sunderland don't have a red fixture. For me, technically speaking, because that's when I'll use my free hit. But then there's some of you who only have the free hit and no wildcard. That's where a team like Aston Villa really shines, and you maybe would look to target players from those teams because Villa and Brighton don't really have a bad fixture anytime soon up until, you know, game week 35, game week 36. You get in 6 game weeks out of a player, that's fairly good value. You know, you can't really complain considering you've already used your wildcard. So when we're looking at the players to buy, which we will do in a bit, we're going to have to discuss whether a player is actually good based on your chip strategy, which it doesn't change too much, you know. The teams that start their fixture runs well are the teams you normally want to target anyway. So whether you're caring about the next 2 weeks or the next 6, the players you should buy wouldn't change drastically. If you guys are wondering, when are we actually going to know who's got the double game week 33 and who's got the blank game week 34, I'm fairly confident we should know before game week 32 because teams will have qualified for the FA Cup semi-finals. We would know who's actually going to cause a game week 34 postponement. And as for those postponements, whether they're going to be in double game week 33 or not, really depends on the scheduling of the Premier League, which can be affected by quarterfinals of European competitions. But we should get a date for the fixtures before game week 32, meaning we will have double game week 33 and blank game week 34 pretty much confirmed, so we can make more educated decisions then. It would be way more ideal to roll transfers this week to make transfers working towards the double and the blank game week. But we just can't do it because there's a lot of us with Arsenal and City players that are blanking, so we can't afford to roll the transfer unless we want to field a team of 7 men, which is definitely not what you want to do. What we do know is that there's most likely, almost definitely going to be at least 4 teams doubling in game week 33, regardless of future outcomes from European competitions. That will probably be Arsenal, Newcastle and Chelsea, Brighton. It could be Man City, Burnley. It could be Liverpool and Crystal Palace. It could be all of them. Well, technically not, because Man City or Liverpool are going to knock each other out. But there could be 2 doubles, you know, 4 teams in total. There could even be 4 matches, meaning 8 teams in total. We just don't know yet, but we will find out before the game week 32 deadline, which is important for those of you on Game Week 32 wildcard. Anyway, let's go look at some players to buy for Game Week 31. Now, the worst thing about needing to make transfers this week is that there is generally no standout options whatsoever, which is annoying because when you make transfers, you want them to be used wisely. Instead, we're just being forced to use them on players that are kind of subpar at the moment. We start with Vandenberg, who still, to be fair to him, has 5 good game weeks left in him. Technically, playing away to Leeds and away to Man United isn't good, but 3 of the next 5, including home to Everton and home to Fulham, are really good fixtures, and Vandenberg is quite easily the best Brentford defender to target. If you don't have a wild card in Game Week 32, then he's better to go for because he will hold out for the next 5 game weeks. He will be a pretty good option, and when he doesn't keep clean sheets, he could still get defcons or maybe a goal involvement, so a fairly good long-term option. ABBREVIATIONS is here because Mukiel and Ballard are at risk of not playing. I personally would wait for more news, hope Mukiel and Ballard are back, and choose one of those 2 players, but if they're not back, ABBREVIATIONS is the next best thing. Home to Tottenham and home to Fulham are 2 really good high clean sheet potential games, and ABBREVIATIONS is so cheap, he could just be a bench defender to rotate with the rest of your teams. Then we have Van Dijk, the first player who may double in Game Week 33 and blank in Game Week 34, but we don't know yet. The defcons for Van Dijk are also pretty good. Liverpool kind of unlucky not to keep a clean sheet. Well, I say they were unlucky. They conceded in the last minute, but they definitely didn't deserve to keep a clean sheet, so Van Dijk owners can make of that what they will. I personally think for the chip strategy I'm on, Van Dijk is the best one to go for because I don't care about Game Week 33 and I'm using my wildcard in Game Week 35, which means I'd have him for away to Brighton, home to Fulham and home to Crystal Palace. But if I bring Van Dijk in and then Liverpool get to the FA Cup semi-finals, I'm going to have him blanking in Game Week 34 and that's going to cause me to have to take a hit in the near future. So it's a real risk to go for him and it's really putting me off going there. Annoyingly, he's got such high ownership and his point potential going forward for the next few weeks is so good, but it's too much of a risk for me to go there, so I'm going to be missing out big time. Next up, we have Thiaw. Newcastle have a great fixture run. You know, the next 6 are fantastic, but they're not. The next 5 out of 6 are fantastic because he plays away to Arsenal in the midst of all of it, which is a definite guaranteed blank. I'm sorry, right? I don't like Arsenal as much as the next guy. But playing away to Arsenal, whether you're a defender or whether you're an attacker, it is the hardest fixture in FPL by a mile. Arsenal are a good team, and that's a guaranteed blank for your players. It almost may as well be a blank game week, except you're going to get 1 or 2 points instead of 0. But there are a lot of high clean sheet potential games in the long term and in the short term, like home to Sunderland against one of the worst attacks in the league is fantastic. Then away to Palace, who are on the worst form of their lives, by the way. 2 clean sheet potential games right there. So it's really good short term if you're on Game Week 32 wildcard. Well, even if you're on Game Week 32 wildcard, you'd literally just be having him home to Sunderland, then you'd be getting rid of him. So I would argue if you are on wildcard 32, he may be the best player to go for. Then in first, we have Matty Cash. Now, he is here for the long-term boys. You know, if you're not on wildcard Game Week 32, Cash is the guy you want to target. Now, I know he's yellow flagged. Definitely wait for some team news. We'll get a press conference on Friday and then we'll know if he's actually going to start or not. If he's at risk, just bring in someone like Konza. It's not hard. Don't go early on Cash. To be fair, I don't think many of you will anyway. Like, he's not a player that's high in demand right now. And these next 4 games, you could see a clean sheet in at least 2 of these, maybe more. Then again, you could see 0 clean sheets in it for Aston Villa, but their home defence is strong. Playing home to West Ham and home to Sunderland is really good for your Aston Villa defenders. And the one who's most likely to get a goal involvement is Matty Cash. Once again, he's only a 7 out of 10, just like most players on this list, so he's not sensational. But if you need a long-term pick, you know, Van Dijk and Cash are the best. Cash especially because he's not going to blank. Looking to the midfielders, Brentford once again have a decent medium to long-term fixture run, but the entry point isn't great, and they also play away to Man United, who are one of the best defences in the league, only behind Arsenal since Carrick has taken over. I don't know which one is better, you know. Brentford play later this evening. You know, I'm releasing this video before they've played. So instead of going off data from the last 4 game weeks with these guys, we're going off data from the last 3. I can't say for sure which one is better. I think it's Dango Iwatara. I could change my mind come Tuesday. I just don't know. And it was hard to leave Morgan Gibbs-White off of this list, but I felt like I couldn't leave, you know, Sharda off and put Dango on this list. It just wouldn't be fair. It wouldn't make sense because Dango and Sharda are on par with each other. So Morgan Gibbs-White does just miss out by a tiny bit, but Gibbs-White is definitely a good option. I just don't think he's as good as the Brentford boys. As for why I put Dango above Sharda, it's because I think he's more clinical in front of goal, even though he hasn't scored in the last 4 and Sharda has. It kind of contradicts what I'm saying, but I believe it to be true because I used to be a Sharda owner. I even had him for that hat-trick, that 20-pointer, and I still believe he is a bit wasteful, and Dango Iwatara has much more creative potential along with being cheaper. But once again, it's a coin toss. You know, Sharda could easily outscore Dango Iwatara in any game week, and vice versa. Going into 8 out of 10 range, we may have something that's a little more surprising. Florian Wirtz enters the graph. Now, Wirtz didn't do well last game week, played 60 minutes, had no impact. You know, home to one of the worst teams in the league in the moment, by the way. So that definitely wasn't a good sign for him. But the fixture run for Liverpool is still good going forward. I think if you're on wildcard 32 and you only care about the next game week, you want to target players from Newcastle most likely. Anyone else doesn't matter too much, like Fulham players also really good if you're on wildcard 32. But long term, you don't really want to go for anyone else. So Wirtz is not for you guys. But long term, you know, if you have no wildcard left or you're using it later on, Wirtz is a great player to target. Like, he picks up underlying data regularly. He isn't the most amazing footballer, but when Liverpool are involved in the goals, he will most likely be there creating it, getting in the box, scoring, assisting. He can do it all. It's just whether he will or not, we just don't know. I personally think, aside from Ekitike, he is the best Liverpool player to target. I know there's mentions of Salah, but Salah is way too overpriced, and I don't think he's as good as Haaland, despite Haaland's bad form, which is why I put Wirtz here instead of Salah. He may not be sensational, but like I said, there's not a ton of great options this week, and I believe Wirtz is one of the best long-term options to bring in for FPL right now. Then we have Gordon, same as Wirtz, 8 out of 10. The only reason he is not higher is because he plays away to Arsenal. Like, if you have bench cover for that away to Arsenal game, you're good. Gordon is the best player you could buy. The underlying data going forward is great. He is on penalties. Newcastle are coming onto some good form. And like I said, that fixture run is good. There is a possible double and a possible blank game week, but that double game week doesn't matter loads. Like, home to Bournemouth is a great fixture, but when he plays away to Arsenal, he's probably just going to get 2 points. I mentioned it earlier. Away to Arsenal is far from easy. And if he plays them in the blank game week, then you may as well have a player who's blanking. So keep an eye out for that. You are going to have a player who's pretty much getting a guaranteed blank at some point, whether it's in the form of not having a fixture or whether it's in the form of playing away to Arsenal. And like I said, Newcastle, great for long term, also great if you're on game week 32 wildcard. But above him, we have a player who almost all of you already own, quite easily the best player in FPL, probably in the league as well. Creative potential is unreal. He doesn't need goals to score. He's got 11 goal involvements in the last 10 games, and I think he's only got like 1 or 2 goals. Ever since Carragher's coming, Bruno has been sensational. 0.52 expected assists per 90 is ridiculous. 1.5 big chances created per 90, unreal. 1 assist per 90 is great. He has got 16 assists in his last 20 games. He does not look like he's slowing down. Bournemouth away is not a tough fixture. Their defense isn't great. Same for away to Chelsea. Even though it's a red fixture, don't get me wrong, it is. Their defense is not sensational. So yeah, short term, long term, doesn't matter. Bruno is your guy to go for. Now, forward options are not exactly overflowing, to be honest. I don't think forwards should be bought this game week, right? Let's think objectively here. There are 4 forwards in the game that are actually good to own. Whether you're playing a front 2 or a front 3, you're going to have Thiago, Ekitike, Pedro or Haaland. Most of you playing a front 2 are going to have at least 2 of those. If you're playing a front 3, you're probably going to have at least 3 of those. Like, I wouldn't recommend selling any of those players I've just mentioned, by the way. I wouldn't recommend selling Haaland, but then again, if you still don't have him, I wouldn't recommend you sell Thiago, Ekitike or Pedro. Even though I put Watkins slightly above them all, I don't think they're worth selling to bring in Watkins, so it doesn't really matter. To be fair, if you're on wildcard game week 32, you're going to sell Haaland because you don't need him. If you really need him, you can wildcard him back in game week 32 when he actually plays. But I would still much rather choose Pedro instead of Watkins, because away to Everton at the moment is probably easier than home to West Ham. I know I've got West Ham home as a green fixture and Everton away as a grey fixture, but based on recent form, you could argue Pedro has the easier fixture right now. I'm just not changing the colours of the fixtures based on recent form too often, or else it'll just mean I'm changing them too much. But on the whole, you know, short term, Pedro's your guy. Medium to long term, Ekitike, Thiago and Watkins. So yeah, I could talk about these guys individually, but there's really no point. We got Dominic Calvert-Lewin at the bottom. He did just miss a penalty, and I put him on this graph. You know what? I thought ahead before that Leeds game was played, and I still think he's, you know, the 5th best forward to get, which isn't exactly an achievement. You know, it's still only a 5 out of 10, because if you look towards the end of the season, Leeds do finish the season really well, so he's a great long-term pick, but he's no better than anyone else on here, and he's proven to be a liability, despite being on great form earlier in the season. You know, that's a purple patch at the end of the day. I don't think he's going to be sensational, but on that good fixture run to close out the season, he could be quite good. Either way, forwards this game week just aren't, the transfers aren't going to happen. Like if you've got Haaland and you need to sell someone just for one game week, you need to get him gone. Bring in Pedro, then wildcard in game week 32. If you're looking long term, I think Watkins is the best. Unpopular opinion, definitely, because he's not been on great form. He's not been getting the points. But I think he slightly edges it over Thiago and Ekitike. Okie dokie, captaincy picks. We are going to be looking at the top 3. We did 8 last video. There were too many good options. Luckily, we only need to do 3 now. So we are looking at Pedro away to Everton. I did mention their defense isn't great. They are 16th for expected goals conceded. Pedro also has the most goal involvements in the last 10 games. He is on amazing form. He's been very scary to go without. Seeing him blank last game week was just beautiful. Okay, it was sensational. I was so happy to see it. I was scared, but my player Gordon scored and Pedro blanked, which I was over the moon about. Looking at Pedro's underlying data, it is amazing for a forward. And even though the expected assists aren't high, he still gets the assists from winning penalties for Cole Palmer. I do think what holds him back is the fact he doesn't have a mega easy fixture. He just has a decently easy fixture and no set pieces to go with it. But he's been finding himself in amazing positions. So hopefully, well, I'll say hopefully, for the sake of me giving the right advice, maybe Pedro can still do well. As for an FPL manager myself who doesn't own Pedro, I hope to God I am wrong. I just don't think I am. I think he is a top 3 player this game week. Yeah, like in terms of expected goal involvements right now, he is on another level. No one is touching him. This was the numbers we saw from Haaland at the beginning of the season. What we always see from Haaland at the beginning of the season until he eventually tails off at the halfway mark. You know, 1.23 expected goals per 90. He's still underperforming the expected goals. Like he's not being a sensational finisher. He just doesn't need to be. So yeah. Pedro, I hope you blank, but I don't think you will. Now on to another huge threat to my rank in Harry Wilson. His underlying data isn't as great, and he did just come back from an injury, so this data is only based off the last 3 games and not the last 4. Either way, he is playing home to Burnley and he is a good attacker, and that is a recipe for a good captaincy haul. Just look at the key matchup stats here, right? Burnley don't do well defending set pieces, and Harry Wilson takes most of the set pieces for Fulham. They are 20th for expected goals conceded and 19th in the last 8 games for expected goals conceded. If there was anyone to get a monster haul against Burnley, it would be Harry Wilson. And if you guys remember what happened in the return fixture, you will know if you didn't own him, you missed out big time. I myself was distraught because I debated between him and Raul Jimenez, and I got Raul Jimenez, who unfortunately did not do as well. Then Wilson's ownership skyrocketed, and he's kept that high ownership ever since and done pretty well ever since. So once again, it's another one I hope I'm wrong about, but I don't think I am wrong about. I think he is the second best captain for FPL in game week 31. And I'm sure you could all see this one coming. Bruno Fernandes away to Bournemouth. The goal threat for Bruno isn't exactly there. It's pretty much just penalties or no goal. You know, 0.25 shots in the box per 90 is genuinely awful. Like, it's terrible. But Bruno's creative potential is so good, it just doesn't matter. The guy doesn't even get DEFCONs anymore. Like, he genuinely is only going to get assists and bonus points, plus maybe a goal from a penalty. Looking at the matchup stats here, something very important. Obviously, Bruno is second for goal involvements in the last 10 games behind Pedro, but Bournemouth are really bad at defending set pieces, and we know Bruno gets so many assists from set pieces this season, the most in the league by a long shot, more from set pieces than open play, and in general, they're 17th for expected goals conceded. Bournemouth are a bad defence, and the matchup for Bruno is absolutely perfect. With the form he's on, you know, if you have Bruno, I don't think you should captain Pedro. I don't think you should captain Wilson. I think he is the best by quite some margin, and if you go without him, I think you will regret it. Obviously, there is a chance he blanks, but I just don't see it coming. At this point as well, pretty much everyone watching is going to own Bruno, so it didn't really make much sense to even mention Pedro or Wilson. Even if you own them, you should really look to Bruno Fernandes. And I've got captaincy shouts wrong in the past, but last game week I said he was the best captain. I said he was better than Ekitike, Salah, Haaland, Semenyo, and I was right. He did better than all of them despite not having any goal threat whatsoever. Perma captain Bruno is a genuine strategy at this point, and it is coming in full flow for game week 31 and probably game week 32. Anyway guys, that is my transfer tips to you. Let me know what you think. Let me know what you agree with. Let me know what you disagree with. If you made it this far, you are greatly appreciated, and I will see you all in the next video.